This is the Vanguard interview series. I'm Gavin, and we're having conversations with activists, candidates, and politicians who are outside of the political mainstream, bucking orthodoxy and representing the new wave future for both political parties or third political parties. We've just been joined by Marquita Bradshaw, the Democratic nominee for U.S. Senate in Tennessee and the first black woman to win a major political party nomination in any statewide race in Tennessee.
For Democratic Senate primary here, Marquita Bradshaw currently leading as precincts are starting to come in.
Marquita Bradshaw, who raised a grand total of, according to the last filing report, $8,000. $8,000, that's essentially no money, versus $2 million, completely upended the race, shocked everyone. She's a leftist. She's backed by the Democratic Socialists of America. She supports a Green New Deal. She supports Medicare for all. She's an activist, an environmentalist.
And I'm running because hardworking people deserve a voice in the U.S. Senate that represent our experiences that we're living right now. Bad policy means life or death to people.
How's it going, Marquita?
It's going great. How are you today?
Doing great, great. Thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. You said you're traveling right now. Where are you heading?
We are on our way to Nashville, and then we're going to Chattanooga.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I love Chattanooga. I was there, I think, last summer, and it's a great town. I heard that they've actually, invested a lot in more green energy and environmental protections, more so than some of the rest of Tennessee. Are you familiar with any of that?
I am familiar with a little bit of it, but what I'm most excited to see in Chattanooga is their broadband.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because they have like one of the fastest broadbands in the world, and I want to be able to see like how they were able to implement that and make sure that everybody has access over the city.
That's super interesting and definitely a very important issue facing the infrastructure of especially rural and downtrodden communities is the fact that they don't have that broadband. So that's an important issue. Now you had a pretty incredible primary story, which is that you beat all of your competitors, I think 4 or 5 of them, despite raising less than $10,000, which is probably less than most of your competitors raised, certainly more so than your corporate competitor James Mackler, the Democratic National Committee's favorite candidate, who they funded at the expense of everyone else. How did you pull off that victory exactly? Can you just give me a little bit of insight into what happened and how you defeated your competitors, including that establishment-approved funded character?
Money is a tool, just like anything else. And what the actual number is not it's not $8,000. The actual number is like $25,000 that we had at our disposal before the actual primary election day.
Okay.
And I am an organizer. And so part of being an organizer is making sure that people that you bring into this process, whether you're facilitating the process of building a union, a community organization, or a political organization, is that you create more people to do organizing. And so that's how I won.
Gotcha.
That's the secret sauce.
So you just organized better than your opponents, you think? That was ultimately your secret sauce?
Secret sauce is about creating a organizing campaign, and that's the secret sauce.
And from a policy level, do you think that voters responded to your, policy prescriptions better than your opponents in that primary? Were you, I know you were repping the Green New Deal, some more progressive and out of the mainstream positions for the Democratic Party, perhaps. Do you think that people responded to that positively?
I think what people responded to was somebody that was not a cookie cutter politician, that was actually accessible and listening to what people were saying. The policies that you see on the website is all connected to an actual narrative that's a part of Tennessee, to a solution of an issue that people are experiencing. And so we're truthfully talking to people about what's going on in their communities and how to create healthy and safe communities. And so every platform on the issues page at marquitabradshaw.com represents something that someone has shared on this campaign trail.
Absolutely. Well, we recently saw Ed Markey beat back Joe Kennedy in Massachusetts, which was an important race because Markey had championed the Green New Deal in the Senate, which, like I said, is a policy you've also embraced. And the Democratic leadership tried to make Markey pay for supporting this policy by supporting Kennedy's challenge to him. However, of course, we saw Markey beat Kennedy handily and proved in a way that the Green New Deal is a politically smart position to take, in addition to, of course, being the correct moral position and the correct position for those that are bearing the brunt of climate change right now. Um, you know, what about your particular story and activism led you to believe that this was the right policy to embrace, and why do you think we need a Green New Deal?
Well, we have to have, okay, so right now, some people don't believe that we're in a climate crisis, but they do believe that we have a problem with pollution. And we have to have a transition away from pollution, and the actual resolution to move away from pollution is the Green New Deal. And it is a deal that includes not only making communities healthy and safe and having that just transition for communities like I grew up in South Memphis that experience the burden of pollution. Across Tennessee, you have 1,100 Superfund sites that are National Priority List Superfund sites, active and also archived. And there are 95 counties, but in the city, Memphis, Tennessee, where South Memphis is located, you have over 220 Superfund sites. So that means our community is carrying the brunt of pollution across this state. And we have to make sure that there are other communities across Tennessee that also is carrying the burden per person, and they may be in Morristown where the burden per person is carried because of the type of pollution that's there based on the populace. And so we need a way to transition our communities away from pollution where people can actually go to work and not be concerned about whether or not they're killing off the fish and the river streams and lakes or messing up the ecosystem and still be able to provide for their families. People want that. And so when you break down the Green New Deal into what it is and how it will help communities with building healthy and safe communities, making sure that we rebuild our water infrastructure, our sewage infrastructure, our energy infrastructure, in order for our communities to be healthy and safe, making sure that communities that have broadband throughout rural and within urban areas, because you can't go to school or work without those things. And so you can't separate what's going on with the Green New Deal away from education, the environment, and the economy, because it's all tied together. And that's what makes sense to people. That's what's been flipping Republicans. That's what's been bringing new people in the race, because a lot of people don't understand what it is. I've had a NICU nurse say, "Hey, Marquita, I appreciate the way you got things on your website, because the stuff about the environment was just so just not, it wasn't in a way that I can understand it, but you made it where I can understand it." Mm-hmm. And so, yes, we could put white papers and we could write policies for days, but who are we trying to get to the polls? Politicos or actual regular hardworking people that I want to represent? And that's the reason why we were able to secure the win in the primary, because I was talking the language that people understand and that they want, and then showing them that they are part of the process by showing them that the narratives that they share with me is a part of those solutions. Every sentence represents a narrative someone has shared with me, because I was truthful in sharing my narrative of what happened to me in South Memphis. They're telling me their truth of what's happening in their communities, so we can move Tennessee forward. This is a time where we can create healthy and safe communities where we live, learn, work, worship, and recreate, by making sure that everybody knows by now, even in the pandemic, no one can exist without health care. We cannot move past the pandemic without everybody having accessible health care, not being worried about having foreclosure or evictions because they can't afford to pay a medical bill. along with people being out of work. Now people know that medical care should not be associated with work. Everybody needs it. And we have to ensure the three foundational pillars of the environment, that education and the economy that works for working families, and not just the ultra rich,
Yeah, absolutely.
is implemented. Yes.
Well, and that brings me to another point, which is that, you're running in Tennessee, which is, of course, most voters, most people would probably associate as a red state, a Republican state. And they might think that it's, a little outlandish that someone who's, running on a platform of populist leftism like yourself would actually have a chance in this state. However, like you said, we're in a pandemic right now, which has really changed the calculus of this election. And with terrible lack of leadership from Donald Trump and the Republicans, I think that it really has been a revealing moment for a lot of people in that they realize that the GOP, despite all of their rhetoric, is not actually looking out for, the little guy, is not actually looking out for the forgotten man, as Trump likes to say. And I think this has changed a lot of people's mind in the way they think about what their government needs to do. All of a sudden, people are embracing concepts like universal basic income, things like this that the government should probably embrace to help its citizens out in this time of crisis. Do you think that the fact that we are living through a pandemic right now, which has changed so many people's calculus on electoral politics, do you think that gives you an advantage in this election, which might traditionally go red?
Well, to say that this state is a traditional red state is incorrect. It's just not true. We have almost over 5 million people that are eligible to vote that have not registered and who have lost the process, or who just does not participate because they think their vote doesn't matter. And so we are at the bottom tier when we look at the percentage of people that actually vote for this state. Mm-hmm. So no, it's not a red state at all. But however, whoever works for it will win. And you have to know that even I've been approached by some Republicans trying to figure out, how did I do what we did in the primary? And it wasn't an I thing, it was a we statement. It was an organizing statement. Because it's Republicans who don't have a whole lot of money, who don't feel like their leadership actually is reflecting their hardworking ethics right now. And they feel like it's some anti-establishment Republicans too.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm not saying I'm anti-establishment, but I am for people, and that's who I want to represent. And some Republicans have committed that they will vote for me in November because of the fact that I actually was listening to people and implementing policies that make sense, that's common sense.
Absolutely. I think that, when it comes to populist candidates that, aren't taking corporate PAC money and that are actually representing the people, embracing solutions that want to improve their communities, I think that absolutely creates a bipartisan consensus, because despite the attempts of the media to smear and look down upon candidates that don't rep the normal ideology of their parties, these candidates are actually the ones that are usually repping their communities the most, like you've said. Can you speak a little bit about, growing up next to or nearby the Memphis Defense Depot, which a contaminated military base, which was in your neighborhood, that, really raised your awareness about, pollution and activism?
So that's like being in South Memphis and being down the street from a military landfill. That was my doorway into the political system, looking for accountability and transparency and how environmental laws are enforced, experiencing environmental racism, and then being an environmental justice activist, looking for solutions for communities that experience pollution at the burden that we did. What was it like? It was a working class community. We had a thriving local economy way back when, and I lived next door to my great grandmother, and The summer times were great. We were a community where it was plenty of community. Like my grandmother had a garden in each one of our backyards, and she also had a renters unit where she used to help people get on their feet, where she would give them 2 months rent free, and then usually after a year, after people get not just a handout but a hand up, they were able to go into home ownership and rebuild their lives after a year, just being able to get that hand up. And so she was a woman that could build community wherever she went. Not only did she cook, she tended to her garden, she also cooked 3 times a day. She only had a 3rd grade education, and she could feed not only our family, which was a lot, she could feed the whole church on Sunday. And if we had visiting churches, they would get fed too, in the whole neighborhood. She would actually cook that much on Sundays. And so she was just a woman that could build community. And she was always just doing things that were kind and uplifting people. But you don't really, she was a woman that was fair too. And she was a licensed gun owner too. So, she was one of those, like, it was nothing to see game in the kitchen, or either a hog head in the kitchen, because they actually would go to the farm to get our food, or either go hunting sometimes. Just a hardworking family, a hardworking community where people knew each other. And most of the time we were, I was related to a lot of people that grew up in my neighborhood. We were down the street from a military landfill. We experienced the loss of manufacturing jobs in Memphis at that point. And that means that thriving local community of small business owners and the florist, the baker, and even our movie theater, all those things went away. And it was a drive-in movie theater. We had our own drive-in movie theater. We didn't have to go too far. It was like a couple of blocks away. And so that lets you know that it was a thriving community with 17 schools. It was full of working class people, full of children. And when my grandmother started dying of cancer, that's the year I gave birth to. It was more people getting sick and dying, but it just didn't happen there. It started with the amphibians. The tadpoles stopped, every time it rained in the summertime, the puddles would fill up with tadpoles, and you would have frogs in no time. But frogs, lizards, those snakes, and all those things began to disappear, the amphibians. And then the butterflies went away. The pets started getting sick. My friend had breast cancer, along with her bird had breast cancer. Then the people started getting sick and dying. And so that's very traumatizing. But we could have sat there and silently just died and get sick. But under my mother's leadership, she was able to start an organization with other concerned parents, community leaders, clergy, teachers, principals, like the whole community. Within the first meeting was 500 people, where they created the organization. They grew to 2,500 people within a year. Half of those members had died. And so this has been a pivotal point that pulled me into politics, that pulled me into activism in a way that gives me accountability to building communities. We're going door to door in your own community, and then growing into a career where you're actually getting paid to organize. It shapes things differently. The way you approach policy is more inclusive. You're bringing people into the process, so everybody can feel that this America is actually for everybody and not just a select few.
Yeah. And I mean, that's such a horrific story, really, especially because our own tax dollars fund the military, and we're told that it's there to protect us. When in this instance, you know, it was a military landfill that, like you said, was pretty much slowly killing off your own community. It's horrific to hear about, and it's great that that at least gave you a window into activism, and now, of course, you're on your way to hopefully becoming a U.S. senator. Kate, I really enjoyed talking to you today, and I really think you're leading the way forward in Tennessee, not Kentucky, with your great campaign and super inspiring victory. I hope that everything goes well for you in the rest of the campaign. Wish you the best of luck. And is there anywhere where people can find out more about your campaign or donate to you?
Yes, go to marquitabradshaw.com, learn more information about the candidacy, virtual opportunities, and then people to donate through ActBlue, and also Crowd Pack are ways people can actually donate. And people can Pfizer code, Memphis, Tennessee, who can actually donate. This is a campaign trail because we're going to all 95 counties to make sure we include people into this process and making sure we are capturing the voices of what's going on in a COVID-19, to not only see how federal policies are affecting people's lives right now as it comes to unemployment and getting past the COVID-19 and our recovery efforts. And so before November, we should have an update on the website with an actual recovery plan based on the voices of Tennessee and what they think they need to see to get not only survive and thrive during a COVID-19 environment, but also what we need to recover.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Marquita. I really appreciated it.
All right. And so, again, you can go to marquitabradshaw.com, and then you can give securely at secureactblue.com, donate Marquita Bradshaw, U.S. Senate, and then Crowd Pack. You can search for marquitabradshaw.com. And thank you so much. I hope to see you all on the campaign trail real soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Marquita. Have fun in Chattanooga.
All right. Thank you.